All right, everybody, we are back on Source Material Live. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, we are discussing DC Pride, a one-shot published by DC Comics celebrating Pride Month and all of their various heroes and villains of the LGBTQ plus community. I am joined by Alexis Hejna. How you doing, Alexis?
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going well. Hamilton. Sorry, I still got that in my head. And joining us once again, as he did last night, as well as Alexis for the Judas contract, Sean Comer. How you doing, sir?
Hi, everybody. This might very well be the podcast that loses me some fans.
And what a legacy we've had up to this point. Because
of all people, I'm the one who's turned in the most exemplary work on this network. Sure.
We're reviewing the DC Pride one shot. It came out on June 8th. It's got a foreword written by Mark Andreyko, who I actually did not discover Mark Andreyko through any of the comics that he has written. I discovered him as somebody who used to come on Movie Fights by Screen Junkies, and I really liked him. I always thought his way of answering questions was always kind of funny. I thought he was a fun character as far as a personality on Screen Junkies Movie Fights. I kind of missed that. And so I started reading some of his work. He was also the author of the Love is Love graphic novel, which was published in the light of the Orlando club shooting from a few years ago, which is on my list of things to read at some point. DC Pride is made up of 9 stories. The Wrong Side of the Looking Glass by James Tynion IV, by The Victors by Steve Orlando, Try the Girl by Vita Ayala, Another Word for a Truck to Move Your Furniture by Mariko Tamaki, who wrote a Harley Quinn book that I want to get a hold of and throw it at my daughter. He's the Light of My Life by Sam Johns, Clothes, Makeup, Gift by Danny Lore, Be Gay, Do Crime, which I'm going to get tattooed across my forehead. That is a great phrase. Just unscarred on my belly, be gay, do crime across my forehead. By Sina Grace, Date Night by Nicole Maines, who plays Dreamer on the Supergirl CW show, and finally, Love Life, Got a Love for Life, as the song goes, by Andrew Wheeler. And then there's a bunch of pinups in here by various artists. I'll start with you, Alexis. You actually hit me to this. You told me that it was coming out. You found it amongst the news items about comic books. What made you decide to pitch it to the people who reviewed the Zombies franchise and will be doing Porky shortly?
Well, when you put it like that. Well, what actually caught my attention when on the news about this was not just about the DC Pride, but the fact that we were going to get a story about Dreamer, who we talked about a lot in our Supergirl Season 5 review, and about how she was actually one of the most interesting characters that we've gotten in the Arrowverse, I would say. Not to mention the evolution of her character from the League of Superheroes where she was originally known as Dream Girl. And we all agree, thank God they changed the name. It's like, sorry, no one's going to take a superhero seriously in this day and age called Dream Girl. But that was actually the article cut said, Dreamer finally getting a comic story. And like, ooh, okay, I'm interested. And then everyone was like, ooh, DC Pride, that sounds awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, if she ever actually gets, and I don't know if she is, I haven't been following a lot of, I know they advertise like an Aquaman of this line of comics and some other stuff. I think a Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy's thing is coming out of this. But I hadn't heard anything about a Dreamer. If Nicole Maines ends up heading up a, whether a limited or a full-on Dreamer series, I might actually dig into that when they start publishing the trades. Sean, you caught wind of this when we were negotiating doing this in our network chat, and you jumped up and wanted to jump on board. So just tell me a little bit about that. What made you excited to talk about this book?
Well, I mean, the mundane answer is, spoiler, I dig comics. And as comics go, thus far, I'm more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy. So there's that. The more honest answer is the fact that, we're talking about a major pillar of nerd media and pop culture that's putting out what sounded at the time on paper already like a really thoughtful annual that was going to feature queer artists and writers. And, among our network, there are, figuratively and literally only 2 queer voices among the family. And I'm one of them. I've been out as pan and poly for a little over 2 years now, I think. And so I kind of felt, at the risk of sounding egotistical and magnanimous about this, kind of duty-bound to make sure that there was somebody from the community who was going to be lending a perspective on this, even if, compared to, a lot of people around me, I haven't been out for all that long. But, representation matters to me. It matters in a big, big way. And so if I have a chance to provide, even what comparatively probably insignificant view I can, I'm going to do it. So,
all right, let's jump into the book. There's, like I said, there's a foreword here by Mark Andreyko. I very rarely in these trades or annuals or whatever read the forewords. I'm like, if there's something in there that of a historical nature or provides context, development, that sort of thing, like you would with a film, I might kind of skim through it. But this one I actually read word to word, and I actually like what Mark Andreyko had to say here. He talked about. I'm always interested in the perspective of somebody who grew up closeted and was a part of other communities but couldn't share that part of themselves in those communities for whatever the reasons were, and then is able to do so years later and then inject that part of themselves into these other parts of the community and be accepted for it. Sort of a long-winded way of saying I'm glad Mark Andreyko can write comic books, regarding his identity, part of his identity. So I thought this was a very nice foreword by Mark. Really quick, did you happen to read the foreword, Alexis?
Skimmed through it. It is really.
Are you familiar at all with Mark Andreyko?
Honestly, I'm not. But this is still a really powerful message, so it was very touching.
If you get a chance, I know it's on Comixology, so in fact it's on Comixology on the Unlimited, so I would imagine you'll find it on Hoopla, which is where you tend to like to read comics. Go grab that Love is Love. It's worth a Google.
Oh, totally.
Sean, anything about the Mark Andreyko forward before we move on?
I've never read anything by him up to this point, but now I kind of want to scoop up everything I can. Because that forward, it was like he peeled and scraped so many thoughts out of my head that I've had since kind of really figuring my identity out and seeing the world through this different lens for what amounts to, not just the 2 years I've been out, but the couple years before that, where things started to become a little bit more clear. And or it's like he'd been a fly on the wall for conversations that I've had with my future wife, who is also pan, or my future stepkid, who's both pan and non-binary, and other queer friends of various stripes. That I've talked to with my most candid, questions, curiosities, concerns, confusions, what have you. It hits every note, and it drove home right from the beginning that this was going to be something that was truly special, and that across the board was going to come from the heart and not editorial mandate, which is precisely what I hoped this would be.
So the first pin-up here is Aqualad, Crush, Bunker, Tracy 13 by Travis Moore and Alejandro Sanchez. I normally don't key into like the pin-ups or the variant covers that they print in these trades, but figure, let's give the artists their due here. Aqualad. That's about the only one I know here. It's a fine-looking picture. Very well done piece of artwork. Alexis, you know any of these people? What'd you think of the art here?
Well, I knew Crush because I picked up the Crush and Lobo series while I was at...
That's the pale gothy-looking girl, right?
Exactly. Yeah, Bunker and Tracy 13 I am not familiar with. Still a really cool picture. I mean, not going to lie, I could easily see this in, like... I could see this being used as artwork for a badge for a Comic-Con in Florida or California or maybe Hawaii because of the palm trees. You know, it genuinely looks like it's like, hey, it's hot and it's summer. Come to a Comic-Con where it's warm and fun. You know, I really could see that being used like that.
Your thoughts, Sean?
I mean, well said. It's a superb group shot. I really have nothing else to add except that the pinups 201 I adored just kind of right throughout the issue. It's a great way to introduce, and that's one of the things I like about this annual so much is, yeah, you have some slightly to varying degrees better known DC figures in here. Like you've got Alan Scott, you've got The Question, you've got Harley and Ivy, Natch, you've got Batwoman, but you've also got a chance to lend some exposure to others who maybe might have a little bit of a cult following, but I mean, a lot of readers might not be familiar with, and you might have a lot of new-ish queer readers like myself who weren't aware. Holy shit! Aqualad's gay? Really? There's a gay Flash? Really?
That's actually a really good transition point because it had me thinking about the first story here, which is a Batwoman story, probably the most well-known of the LGBTQ characters in the DC canon. Certainly at this point, if you're even ancillarily keeping up with the CW shows, they had a very famous out gay actress play Batwoman in Ruby Rose, and then they continued that trend with the actress who replaced her, whose name escapes me right at this very second. But
I miss Ruby Rose. She was so much better.
You know how far behind I am on Batwoman, and I'm like, I got about 5 episodes into it, and then life got in the way as in podcasts, so I haven't kept up with it. But I plan to. It's all on my DVR. My point being that while Batwoman has been around for many years, and Alexis and I covered actually 2 Batman books on Source Material Live. One when Crisis of Infinite Earths was on television, and they introduced Ruby Rose's Batwoman, and then the other when we reviewed the first season of the show. Many people might still not be familiar with Batwoman. They might not have read Elegy, which is the story this seems to be sort of plucked from. So I'll just kind of give my notes here, and then I'll kick it to you guys to bat the ball back and forth. Didn't start off on the strongest foot for me personally, but I can take myself out of it and sort of look at the more global picture. If you're in the comic book store and you're picking this up for the first time and you don't know Batwoman, you don't watch the show, and you never read Elegy, this works just fine. It's interesting artwork. It's probably the most interesting artwork in terms of being different than standard fare in the entire book. It has a very unique look to it. Unfortunately, like I said, for me, this was plucked right from the Elegy story. So I'm like, well, we've done this already. We did it in the show. We did it in the book. It works as a great introduction for people who know nothing about this and are seeing the Pride thing for the first time and going, hey, I'm interested. What's this all about? What are your thoughts, Alexis, on this first Batwoman story?
Likewise, yeah, this is a story that we have read multiple times. For the record, if you have not read Batwoman Elegy, what the heck is wrong with you? No, seriously, plug. But going back to that review, I had previously mentioned that anyone who wants to get into comic book layout, that is a must-read because that is one of the most creatively designed graphic novels I have ever read. It was so beautiful to look at. But I will also admit that this short vignette, the artwork is gorgeous. I love the stylized look of the girls, the emphasis on the blue and red color, and look at the texturizing on Batwoman's cape and mask. That is so sublime. just absolutely gorgeous little bit of textures. I mean, that's not something you see paid a lot of attention to in a graphic novel, and I love it.
You and I talked about MODOK, the lettering in MODOK, the narrative bubbles and stuff like that, narrative boxes. Just give me a minute on the narrative boxes in this, because they're so cool looking.
Very much so. I love that whenever, just even the little touches that when she mentions Alice's name, it's a different font alone. That I love, just like Alice had always been the one to find. Just you can tell how much emphasis she's putting on it, even in her own mind. And yes, I love how it gets a little bit more, I don't want to say squiggly, but just a little bit more uncentered, I guess would be a good word, whenever Alice or the Mad Hatter starts speaking.
Sean, your thoughts on The Wrong Side of the Looking Glass by James Tynion and with art by Trung Lee Nguyen?
If you wanted to set the tone for this entire anthology, you absolutely made the right choice by putting this story first. 100%. Not only could I see this being a superb spark to get somebody to want to check out more of the character, but at the same time, it's also a story that speaks an allegory to so many, to the start of so many journeys, the rockier start for queers of all stripes, from kind of the point where, again, you're kind of looking, you're kind of, how can I put this? I'm sorry, I'm kind of stumbling a little bit over this, but she has somebody right there at the very start that she's able to effectively mimic, even though she doesn't know exactly what to do, sort of how to match up exactly. And once that's taken away, she no longer sees that reflection of herself anywhere. She has no one and nothing to follow to give her a sense of order in the grander game. And that is everyday life for so many people who are just sorting their sexuality out. And not only that, but even once you do, if you don't necessarily fit neatly into one of the boxes, the confusion doesn't necessarily end. If you're someone who maybe isn't who doesn't maybe overtly, outwardly code gay, so to speak, like myself, you may not necessarily feel like you entirely mesh well around other gays, and at the same time, you never feel entirely at home among the straights either. On one side, you have a group of people that on one level you know that you belong to, you know that these are your people, but on the other, you have a whole other world where you feel like you have to fake it till you make it and always keep a part of yourself behind the curtain, lest you should alienate anyone. Because, I mean, if you're bi or pan or hetero-flexible, and especially if you're in a hetero-facing relationship with somebody, you're subjected at various points to tons of bullshit, inappropriate, invalid litmus tests. You're kind of either leper or fetish at almost any given time to everyone. You'll be rejected by some sects of the LGBT community because you're somehow not gay enough. You're not queer enough. On the other hand, you make it known that you're pan or bi among a lot of straight people, and many will become entirely uncomfortable based on the unfounded fear that you're some kind of perpetually horny predator that could hit on them, could start, relentlessly hitting on them or worse at any given moment. Thanks, pop culture, for that. Or, your sexuality is just reduced down to someone else's fetish, and that goes for if you're male, female, trans, whatever. So, I mean, it's kind of where there's that pointed line at the end, and I'm sure I'm probably going to get it at least somewhat wrong, but some people would rather smash a mirror than look themselves in the eye.
I want to
so true for so many people.
Just to kind of conclude our discussion on Batwoman and move this along, if people are interested in her in a movie, there's the old 2003 Rise of the Batwoman, I think it's called, animated movie, but the one that I would recommend actually is Batman Bad Blood. She is voiced by Yvonne Strahovski, and thank you, and she's really, really good. Like, if there's something to stick with me after all these years later and all this crap I've crammed into my brain, I remember her being a standout character in Batman Bad Blood, which serves as part of the Batman versus Robin trilogy of cartoon movies. Moving on. The next one is Time in a Bottle, and this is a John Constantine story with Gregorio de la Vega and Midnighter, I believe the character's name is. This
It really isn't a Constantine story. It's a Midnighter story with Constantine bookends.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So I said my only comment about this is it's a finely drawn story. It's a nice little short. It kind of reminded me of the comics, the portioned out comics you get on Free Comic Book Day, where it's not the whole thing, it's just a portion of it to whet your appetite to come back and buy the real thing for $5. It felt a little short and incomplete. I made a comment on Twitter that I kind of wished in the editing process they had just cut some of these, and so that some of the better stories could be longer. This isn't bad, it's just too short to be anything that I was interested in beyond. It's nice to have representation in these characters doing these things and being portrayed as, fun comic book character human beings. But I couldn't get beyond that. It was just too short. Alexis?
Fun little tidbit here. When I first picked up the book, I just kind of flipped through some of the pages, as you do when you pick up a comic book for the first time. The page where Gregorio and Midnighter crash through the window was one of the first pages I looked at. And I genuinely thought, wait, did I pick up a Doctor Strange book by mistake?
It's funny. I missed a line or something, and so I had to go back and read it again. Again, a lot of distractions this morning, but I honestly thought I was in a different story at one point. I was like, what happened to Constantine? What happened here?
I know, right? I mean, it's good, and you're right. The artwork is just absolutely lovely. I love it when we get a story that takes, or artwork like this, that it takes place at night, and there's a lot of blacks, but everything is still lined and lit extremely well. I always get so annoyed whenever you have a scene at night, and it's just like, and I officially can't tell which character is which or what character is doing what. But no, this is just beautiful to look at. The lighting effects on the magic is very, very lovely. So, but of course, I'm also intrigued by the last line that Constantine basically says, oh, your husband's a werewolf? Bring him along.
Well, of course.
Like, okay, that's what I wanted to see.
Yeah, on the conversation of whose voice do you hear when you read comic books, I think, unless you've never seen either I think it was CBS or CW shows, forever will that character be voiced by Matt Ryan, whoever else plays him, whenever you're reading comic books. Sean, your thoughts on this short?
I mean, very little, yeah. Absolutely gorgeous art. Well done. And it's funny. The premise at first blush, I could see how it would sound really silly that they're hunting down a Nazi vampire who is seeking to rewrite history to eliminate the gay element. Mm-hmm. from Greek myth, and it sounds ridiculous at first. Like of all things, why would a super villain focus on that? Oh wait, he's fighting what he perceives as a culture war, and he's a Nazi. And
it's the kind of thing I wish they'd do a full book on, because it's a great idea. And first of all, that's right out of every B movie I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You know, large-breasted, 6-foot, blonde Nazi women, the whole thing.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're talking about erasure like that, it might be an exaggeration in terms of the fact that you're magically going back to the time of ancient Greek myth to rewrite it. But at the same time, in principle, not much of a stretch at all.
Yeah. The next pinup is Apollo by David Talaski. For the sake of time, if I don't have anything, I'm not going to make anything up. So, Alexis, your thoughts on the pinup?
Very Romeo and Juliet inspired. It's cute. It is. It's a piece that just made me go, "Aw, now that's adorable."
Yeah, I like the use of color.
Oh, very much.
Does that? I don't know if you have an answer to this. If you don't, you don't have to struggle for one. We can just say you don't know. But what kind of style of colorization and art is this? Because it seems stylized and unique.
I'll take a look. If I had to take a wild guess, well, the background's definitely watercolor. I'd say it's probably watercolor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Kind of hard. It's a little hard to tell when you can't get a good look at the textures through this. But if I had to take a wild guess, I'd say watercolor.
Sean, your thoughts on this pinup of Apollo? Who I have no idea who this character is, by the way.
Duh.
They do have
Cuties.
loving eyes there. We get another pinup here, I think. I have to keep flipping back and forth through the book. There's a Green Lantern here. Yeah, Green Lantern by Brittany Williams. Again, someone who is familiar, if you're familiar at all. The last Green Lantern I had heard about was the Muslim with the gun, and then there was the Hispanic one. And they were in, I think, the Rebirth Green Lantern book, and then Hal Jordan got shuffled off to Green Lantern and the Green Lantern Corps. And Guy Gardner, I think, joined KISS or something. I don't know. So does anyone know who this is?
Hang on a second. I've been reading a little bit about her, but I cannot remember her name for the life of me. Let's see here. I can look it up real quick.
Sean, any clue?
No, recent comics are kind of not in my wheelhouse right now. I'm still catching up on a lot of older stuff I've been dying to read for a long time. So
go ahead,
her name
Alexis.
is Sojourner Mullion, I think is how you pronounce her last name.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this next one is Try the Girl. How long has Renee Montoya been the question? That's a relatively recent thing, isn't it, Alexis?
Fairly, and God forgive me, I'm just going to say it. When I look at... I love that they made Montoya the question. That's an awesome casting decision. But when I look at her with the mask and the trench coat and the hat, all I see is the Smooth Criminal music video.
I don't want to get off on a tangent. We don't have time for it, so it's kind of a yes, no, maybe, I don't know. But didn't replacing the question, whomever it was, with Renee Montoya send at least a part of the comic book community into hysterics?
I would almost guarantee it without even knowing the background.
Any thoughts, Alexis? Any clues?
Not 100% certain.
Okay. This is fine. This was one of the ones I liked. And any of the ones I liked, I kind of wish they had been longer. But this was fine in its length. It did its job of making me now want to go seek out Renee Montoya version Question comics.
100%.
Or trades. This is right in my wheelhouse. You have someone running for office. You have a mugging. You have a guy assaulting a homosexual hero and getting his comeuppance for it, that sort of thing. You have witty banter coming from Renee Montoya, the Question. I particularly enjoyed her dialogue in this. I got a kick out of it. I was laughing a lot. I liked this one panel, and again, these are very odd angular panels on this one page, this final page, as a matter of fact. But she gives her a big smooch on the mask, and of course it leaves a lipstick stain, because of course it does. It's great. So if the idea is, hey, let's just put out some appetizers to see if people will come back and get into these characters, whether they're just fans of the characters or they're supporting the community through buying these comic books. They did their job here with me. I'm now more interested in the Question than I ever have been. I am more interested in Renee Montoya than I was when she took steroids in the Injustice comic books and went nuts killing superheroes. Well, that's a story for another day. Alexis, the Question story.
For the record, I just Googled it. Renee became the Question in July 2019, so it is fairly recent.
Okay, and definitely recent enough that people on Twitter would have tried to set themselves on fire.
Oh, and without question.
Because lesbians are only acceptable when you are jacking it to them.
It could be that.
Otherwise,
it could also
no lesbians. No.
It could be that, and it could also be you can't gender swap, race swap, religion swap, animal swap any character unless it meets the board of approval of infinite comic book geeks.
Despite the fact that we've long since established that most of these hero mantles are just that.
Yeah, I get it.
Mantles. They're symbols. They're ideals. They're not inextricably sewn to just one person, and with few exceptions, at least half the major mainstream comic characters, regardless of whether you just identify them with one person, they have been portrayed by somebody else at some point or another. We're past the point of needing to establish precedent for this.
I mean, there's only been 9 zillion Spider-Men of various, including a pig. It's only going to get weirder from here, folks. Go ahead,
Spider-Man,
Alexis.
Green Lantern. There have been multiple Batmen, multiple Robins, multiple fucking Hawkeyes. We're on our second Iron Man, our second Hulk.
No, we're on our third Iron Man, buddy, because Rhodey was Iron Man for a while.
Third? Oh yeah. That's right. I forgot.
Yep.
We've had like 3 or 4 Captain Americas up to this point.
We're more or less going Captain America International,
Yeah,
pretty much.
Didn't they just announce a Filipino one?
Do we really? Yeah, let's go ahead. The United States of genitals. Damn, Marvel. God damn.
Go ahead, Alexis.
I'll say they've been starting a story arc where essentially every community now has their own Captain America, and that's how we get the gay Captain America, who was just announced not too long ago. The idea that they're not saying, oh, look, Steve Rogers is gay. The idea is that Steve Rogers or Sam Wilson, I honestly don't remember who they said is officially Captain America in this story arc, has inspired more people to take up their own shields to defend their communities. And Cap comes across one where there is a gay Captain America. And yeah, I think there was a Filipino one as well. And I really like that idea.
Oh, there's all kinds of issues with making a Filipino woman Captain America.
I now just got the point you're making. Yeah, we don't need to get into that though.
Yeah.
All right, Alexis, the Question. Go.
Well, like I said, I think that having Renee Montoya become the Question is a terrific evolution of the character. I've been following Montoya since I think she was first created in the Timiverse series. I think that was her debut. And I love that how they've just worked with this character and evolved her. So I think having her don the question, it feels natural, you know? This doesn't feel like, oh, they just ran out of ideas, so they made her a superhero. It's like, no, this actually feels like the correct path for this character, and I like it a lot. Again, I just have trouble with, she's got the hair with the mask on that all I see is freaking Michael Jackson. I'm sorry. I love Renee Montoya, and I love the question, and I love this evolution, but I look at that, and that's all I see.
Well, now I'm not getting Smooth Criminal out of my head. Sean, give me a minute here on the actual story.
You know, sometimes it's the little things. We had 2 straight stories that were buoyed by some pretty vital, pointed, and extremely valid subtext. But in this case, it achieves something else that several other stories throughout this annual do, and that is showing that you can have normalized queer characters where the entire story isn't just about them being gay. It's just like you can have stories about heroes and villains who are more than just their powers or their fantastic origins. They're people. They're not props. You know, they're not there to be your dog whistles. They're just people. They do ordinary people things. Or in this case, they're capable of, you know, just going on adventures and landing in a spicy romantic entanglement with the distressed citizens they rescue. I like that there's a certain clear from the outset, maybe barely masked sense of Renee's fascination with Johnson before they even encounter each other. And yeah, that cheeky kiss there at the end. Sometimes it's just refreshing to not have the sexuality lampshaded, and to just tell a simple story where you can see queer people just depicted in the same set of standards as everybody else.
Harley Quinn gets kind of a bad rap as being, you know, like if nobody knows any comic book characters, they know Harley Quinn and fucking Deadpool. But I enjoy Harley. I've read a couple of her New 52 trades. I enjoy the animated series that was on DC Universe, now is on HBO Max. I think it's fucking hysterical. I know, again, Kaylee Kawaku gets a bad rap for having been on The Big Bang Theory as well as the rest of that cast, and that's not a subject I feel like talking about. But I have to say, despite all of the sort of sideways glances and sneering both Harley Quinn and Kelly Kawaku get, that series is phenomenal. That 2 seasons of that animated series is fan-fucking-tastic. And I bring that up because our next story is Harley and Ivy, and it's very, very short. But this one, this one, again, was a teaser for, I think, something they're doing later in the year. I have an article up here from Games Radar that says Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy will eat, bang, and kill their way into a new comic this fall. And it's a filler between the end of Season 2 of Harley Quinn and the forthcoming Season 3, where they went full-on into the Harley, Poison Ivy romantic relationship. And so this story sees them fight in a plant, like you do, and and very much like the Harley Quinn Power Girl miniseries that spun out of her New 52 run, which was hilarious, by the way, and I highly recommend it.
Yes.
It's a lot of punching a guy or punching a girl or punching a plant while having a conversation, and and the witty repartee banter that tends to follow Harley Quinn and her subsequent writers around the DC universe. And this is right out of that. It's it's almost a setup to a joke. Poison Ivy wants to talk about their relationship, and Harley Quinn wants to hit a plant with a hammer. Second verse same as the first with these two. And at the end, Harley's like, I love you. Blah, you know, and Poison Ivy's like, fantastic. And they kill a plant and they move on. It's great. You know, nothing I hadn't seen before out of these two, but it's there. And again, if you haven't seen the cartoon or you haven't picked up the Valentine's Day one-shot from earlier this year or the Poison Ivy and Harley limited series that Alexis and I reviewed during one of the Harley Quinn seasons, same week. This should whet your appetite for same. I think if you read this, I would be surprised if anyone didn't read this who didn't automatically hate these two characters that wouldn't want to read more about them. I think they are an adorable couple. Alexis, your thoughts on this little short story here?
I am genuinely hoping I see more of these character styles of cosplay. I freaking love Harley's outfit, and I saw that, and I'm like, please tell me I'm going to see more of this cosplay at the cons than the Birds of Prey movie cosplay, because this is just so much more creative and fun. And I'll admit it, I had to Google what a U-Haul meant.
Okay.
What, do you know what U-Haul means?
I've not a clue what you're talking about.
The final line here, the two watching Harley and Ivy walk off, they say, what did I tell you? Total U-Haul. Those two,
that line. Okay, yeah. All right, give it to me in 50 words or less.
U-Haul is a term used specific. It's for a member of the LGBTQ community, but 9 times out of 10 it means it's pointed towards a lesbian who moves into a relationship extremely quickly.
They have to have a term for that? That's a thing people do. Shit, my kids and I talk about that on the movies that we've watched recently, how it was the 101 Dalmatians. Like, within seconds, they're in love. We're like, well, that's how movies work. Shit, the pitch meeting guy makes fun of that. Why is that?
Shut up. We're allowed to have our own things.
No, you're not allowed to have your own word for a thing everyone does and is in every movie ever.
Yes, we are. Eat a dick.
Not at this moment. I just had lunch. Your thoughts on the comic, sir?
Hey, Warner Brothers Interactive. Mirror, come here. Come closer. You see this? You want to honor Poison Ivy during Pride Month? This is how you do it. Not by setting up a special event where you can get spiffy cosmetics in your mobile game by beating up one of DC's buy icons. See this? This is done right. I knew I was going to get some Ivy and Harley love, and I was not disappointed on any level whatsoever. It was short. It was fun. It was everything I adore about the chemistry between these two that straddles the line between fantastical adventures and mundane couple shit. I could not have been happier with this. I didn't want it to even necessarily be longer. It just ended it just moved at a perfect pace. Just a nice little sweet bite of a tasty palate cleansing appetizer before we kind of got back to the weightier shades of gay.
Yeah, and I'm going to stick with you because I have a Green Lantern question, which I don't know if you know the answer to. But before we do, I'm going to give you a chance to take a sip of water and a breath of fresh air while I talk about Grammarly. Yeah. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else you write on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvements. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, that's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. All right, Sean, again, if you don't know the answer, it's perfectly okay to say, I don't know. When did Alan Scott become gay? Because that can't have been a thing that he started off with when he was first invented as a comic book character.
No, absolutely not. It was only a few years ago, I believe, because I remember having conversations with Cole about it. and in fact, him being particularly cheesed off about how DC handled Alan in the wake of his coming out. So, God, I want to say 5, 6 years. I'm going to say 5 years, and then invite one or both of you to Google and check my work.
Okay. Now I know that your big thing in the Green Lantern was the Jeff Johns run. We've talked about it only a zillion times over 10 years.
Yep.
How much Alan Scott are you familiar with, if any at all, beyond what you just told me?
Virtually none, except for that in his original origin, he was a railroad man who found an enchanted Green Lantern, and that was the origin of his powers, not a gigantic willpower infused power battery on a distant planet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this interpretation of Green Lantern was miles away from what we had come to know in Green Lantern, but they, over the years, have sort of retroactively injected him into the Green Lantern universe.
Yeah, and I know that he was a linchpin of the JSA, and there has since been crossover between the JSA and the JLA, and of course that means that he's rubbed shoulders with Hal and John and Guy and Kyle a few times. But other than that, no, I wasn't especially familiar with Alan.
I know they alluded to him in the Stargirl show, but they didn't use him. They focused on some other JSA characters, and that might have been a budgetary thing. Keeping with you, and then I'm going to go over to Alexis, and she can share what she's found and then her thoughts on the comic book. He's the light of my life. This is a son talking to a dad, and the dad has come out, and the son is already out, and they are, this doesn't have to be a superhero story. This is a scene out of any number of movies that have dealt with this sort of thing. I like this. This was one of the ones where I didn't mind the length of it. I didn't need more. I didn't need less. It was a nice short story just the way it was. I actually almost kind of wish they weren't superheroes, because this just seemed like a thing between people that needed to happen. I don't know who the character in blue is, though, so I'll pitch it over to you, Sean.
This was Alan Scott acknowledging that his both coming out and re-entering his son's life was planting trees that his son would spend more time sitting beneath than he ever would. That knowing that he had obviously more years behind him than before him, but that his son, who was both young in life and younger in his sexuality and living that truth, had so many unwritten years ahead of him to make whatever he will of them. And he just wants to help guide him down the best course that he possibly can.
What is his son? What is the superhero name or villain or whatever the hell he is?
His son's
Oh God, I don't.
Go ahead, Alexis. Alexis was jumping in here with an answer. Go ahead.
Yeah, his son's name is Obsidian.
Okay.
He's the twin brother of Jade. They started. What was the name of the team? Infinity Incorporated. A group mostly composed of children and grandchildren and proteges of a member of the JSA.
Okay.
Basically, his power, among other things, he kind of merges his body with his own shadow, which kind of gives him enhanced strength and vitality. He can also fly and become intangible. It's very similar to Raven's soul self.
Well, and in a bigger sense, I found that the story was an acknowledgement of kind of the bittersweet spirit of Pride. Mm-hmm. It strives for an equilibrium between the celebration of the present and the strides that the community has made, but it's also a protest of what our community is still fighting for after so many years and so many setbacks, and what people were persecuted and fought and died and were ostracized and lived half lives, never fully being out and being able to be public facing with who they were, and sort of all the mountaintops and valleys below that all those people never got to see. Like I said, the trees that were planted and kind of quenched by their blood, sweat, and tears, that so many of them never got to rest beneath. And I do love that they managed to frame that with these really touching, candid moments between these two generations. It was absolutely beautiful.
Your thoughts on this Green Lantern tale, which, by the way, I'm picturing the drama in my head, absent the superhero stuff, and this is, Adam Driver and Adam Driver and like Al Pacino or somebody, and it's just a dramatic scene between father and son. That's the movie in my head.
Please never force me to think of Al Pacino as Alan Scott ever again.
First old man I could think of. Give me a break. I almost went too old. I was just Martin Sheen. No, he's not grandpa. I need middle-aged here, and that's not Al Pacino either. But he's the first one that came to my head, having just watched The Irishman a few months ago. Alexis, your thoughts on this short story?
One of the things that really stuck out to me was the artwork. When I was in art school, one of the projects that we had to do was creating a full piece, but we weren't allowed to use other colors. It was basically pick one color, and everything has to be done with that one color through shading. And that's what I see with this background. Alan Scott is essentially recreating the story through his ring, but it is all just in the green. There's maybe like a few little touches of different shades of green, but the shading and the lighting in this is so beautiful when you realize that they couldn't really go nuts with the colors. They had to keep this all within the same realms of the green that we would see in the ring. And it's lovely. I love how clearly you can see everything in the background, all the little details. Just really nice work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's actually something I would like to see done on film in real life. Using, and I hope with the iterations of Green Lantern shows and movies coming up, or characters within movies, they play around with that. It was one of the misses, and boy, do I not want to get on to a tangent about this. It is a statement of fact. It was one of the misses with the Ryan Reynolds movie that they didn't do fun and interesting things with the ring that have been done for the 100 years of the comic's existence. This pinup of John Constantine, at the risk of having Robert Winfrey call me a weenie for the next 10 years, I don't like the act of brushing one's teeth captured on film or in picture. It's a thing we need to do. I tell my kids to do it all the time. Hey, both of you, make sure you got brushed teeth today, and for God's sakes, put on different underwear. This is what parenting is, making sure your teeth are brushed and you have clean underwear. And I assume John Constantine has clean underwear in the picture. We can't see it. But do I need to see him brush his teeth?
I'll brush my teeth.
Oh, good. Say it loud into the microphone.
Okay, I'll brush my teeth.
Thank you, Jonas. Jonas, you've now a part of hashtag Pride. Give me 5.
Oh God, breathing hurts.
So anyway, this pinup of John Constantine by this artist here, I do not need to see him brushing his Kevin Wada. Kevin Wada, you're lovely. You're fine. It's a lovely picture, but could we have him do something else besides brush his teeth? Why? Why do we need to see this, Alexis Hejna? By the way, the cheeky little sticker that's a callback of Zatanna. Nice touch.
I know, that's the part that made me laugh the hardest. I reread that Paul Dini Zatanna book all the time, and I love the correspondence between Constantine and Zatanna. So I love that the idea that he's put a couple of little charming X's on his mirror, probably to protect him or something, while he's brushing his teeth. And then he's like, oh, and while I'm at it, call back Zatanna. I get little details like that. You see the tarot card at the bottom, the uncapped. Of course, Constantine forgets to put the cap back on the damn toothpaste. Why does that surprise me?
Sean, anything about this pinup, real quick?
Fuck y'all, John Constantine can get it.
Look, any number of pornographic images featuring John Constantine, I'm fucking there for. It's fine. I'm just saying, do I have to see him brush his teeth?
I'd let him borrow my toothbrush. I got some extra heads around.
That's fine. Moving on. This next one, I'm going to pull up the artist in just a second here. I am the foggiest fucking clue who these people are.
According to the front, it is Scandal, Savage, Knockout, and Jeanette. I have absolutely no clue who any of those are.
Yeah, you could have said sliced bread, sandwich, and shoes, and I would have been. I believe you. I don't know who they are. Sean, you ever hear of them?
No, none of the above.
Okay. Well, whoever they are, they were drawn by Chris Anka. It is a perfectly... I will say this. If you had just showed me that picture and said, stream of consciousness, your first thoughts, I'm like, this is in my wheelhouse. All of these people. These outfits, the bodybuilding woman with the spiked shoulder pad. You have this, sort of elder-looking version of Elvira with the white hair, and then this other ninja-looking girl. Yeah, they don't have to be comic book characters. You just showed me this picture of a pinup, and I would like, this is right there, right in the stuff that I like. So, nice picture. I've foggiest fucking clue what I'm looking at, but a very nice picture.
Okay, so the redhead is apparently the daughter of Vandal Savage.
Oh, I think they alluded to her in the first season of Legends of Zelda. Legends of Tomorrow.
Yeah, all three of these are members of the Secret Six. If that, means
not a clue. Nope. This is quickly turning into the podcast that I hate, where the host doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, no clue. It's not a clue here. So what's the gal's name in the green bathing suit and shoulder pad?
That's Knockout.
Okay.
And the one who looks like, let's see here, frankly looks like Elsa on a random, DeviantArt search.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised you didn't make that joke, to be honest.
I'm 45. Elvira is more in the front of my brain than the character you just mentioned.
Word.
Okay, let's see here.
Elvira also has a book coming out. Did you know that?
I did, and I want.
Yeah, me too. That's going right in the Kindle reader.
Do want.
Yeah. Not much I can find on her. Her name's Jeanette. From the looks of it, she is a banshee, if I'm reading this correctly. Let's see here. Oh, okay,
why does she wear wrestling boots? You notice that, Sean? She's wearing wrestling boots.
Huh.
Yeah.
She has banshee-like screams. Oh, here, this is interesting. Two of these Scandal, Savage, and Jeanette were created by Gail Simone.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Gail. I love Gail, the queen of Twitter.
Moving on.
Still love getting to shake her hand and ask her, so why did you make Tweety so insulting in your DC Looney Tunes crossover?
And she said, don't you want to talk about women in refrigerators? And she said, no, bitch. Talk to me about Tweety and your terrible decision-making. And Gail Simone said, aw.
No, actually, it was kind of fun because she was clearly ready to talk about women in refrigerators, because when I mentioned that, she's like, oh, yeah, I did write that book, didn't I? I just love that I caught her so off guard.
Because I'm sure, 9 out of 10 people are like, women in refrigerators, pro, con, or indifferent. And then here comes Alexis Hejna, so Tweety Bird. What the fuck, lady? And it's like, what? I wrote that? I had to pay rent that week.
She was awesome. She was nice. I shook her hand. I told her how much of an inspiration she is to women in the industry, and I said, but then I mentioned, I got to tell you, I did a review on your Looney Tunes DC crossover where you had Catwoman and Black Canary meet Sylvester and Tweety, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, just the look on her face, like, this is not the book that I thought people were going to bring up.
Didn't I do a Wonder Woman or some shit? What the hell, man? All right, so I don't know who this iteration of the Flash is. It seems like an African American lesbian, but that's really, I mean, it's a great story. As a short, this worked very well for me because the idea is I'm a speedster, but I'm always late, and it's date night, and I got shit to do, and villainy is afoot. So it's great. It's as an elevator pitch, I like it. It was executed perfectly well. This is another one where I'd be interested in see what else the character does. I didn't need more of this particular story. This was perfect as a short, Alexis.
Absolutely. I'm trying to look up exactly who this character was because I haven't seen a lot about them. But she does seem like a lot of fun. I just love the idea of, first of all, I love that she's using her powers to try on clothes. She goes, no skirts while speeding. Learn that the hard way.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was this person, and I tend to catch wind of any race, gender, religion, sexuality swap that happens in comics because Twitter sets itself on fire and that flame burns into my feed, and then I make fun of those people. When I'm not making fun of them from getting angry that they made Lola Bunny not sexy, I also then laugh at the comic book people who are mad at their character not being what they wanted it to be. In any case, this one went right past me. The last thing I heard about the Flash that pissed people off was Wally West was a murderer, and then the writer got death threats, allegedly. Okay, we did this review. It exists. This happened. God, what was the name? Oh, it was Heroes in Crisis. That's what I'm referencing. Our review is in the archives. So, yeah, you got anything for me, Alexis, who this person is and where she showed up in?
Okay, here we go. She's technically not really the Flash. Her name is Kid Quick.
Okay.
She is from Earth 11. Let's see her. Her real name is Jess Chambers. Yeah, she uses the Speed Force, but technically she's not a Flash. So they call her Flash, but her name is really Kid Quick.
Fair enough.
She's on Earth 11.
Anything else about this particular story?
Just kind of like the idea that it's like, okay, fine, I'll fight you, but can we make this freaking quick? I've got a date.
Yeah, it almost if it wasn't like serious about the medium, I would almost think this was the plot of an SNL sketch.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna say, not a fan of the this version of the Mirror Master. It's a little too
Jokey.
Yeah, very jokey, down to what looks like disco ball underpants.
Well, look, I'm a huge fan of disco ball underpants. That's fine. I actually didn't mind the look. My issue with her is she presented zero threat. She was there as part of the idea of everything getting in the way of this woman finishing her errands in time for the date. There was no dramatic tension here, no threat from the villain. But I'm going to tell you right now, just looking at her again, this is right in my wheelhouse. This is right out of the Pam Grier School of Blaxploitation movies. I love it. I want more of this. Can we get this character out of the DC universe into a forthcoming Luke Cage series? I'd be okay. I'd be perfectly okay with that. Sean?
I love it. I love stories like this. You know, where we're not being set up as your joke butts, your caricatures, your tragic motivation for a straight character. You know, we don't have to be stuffed in fridges or die horrible deaths. We don't have to be looming lecherous predators. Sometimes we're just cute couples who are just running behind for dates, and then have to stop crime. That's that's it.
Like you do in your average life.
It's normal. It's normalization. And again, it's the part of representation that I think matters most, is normalizing. You know, it's one thing to have an annual like this that spotlights these underrepresented characters, but along the way, it's great to also put them on an absolutely equal footing with plots and problems that you could just as easily see Jay Garrick, Barry Allen, or Wally West having to deal with.
I want to stress and I'm going to say it and I'm going to move on. I really want to stress the importance of normalization because I think it's, without going on a tangent or doing this for too long, I think it's easy to fall into the thought, gay, straight, or indifferent, that we've come so far. There is so much inclusion. There is so much representation. That's it. It's normal now. It's fine. But there are absolutely, not just around the world where in some parts of it, being gay is illegal and a cause for execution in some smaller parts of the world, but also here in the United States where there are still pockets of intolerance for this sort of thing. And so, of all the things you've said in the show so far, I think normalization and the continued normalization of the homosexual community in every medium that we can touch, I actually do 100% agree is very important, and it's represented well in this comic. It's one of the I think the great pains they made in editing this thing and writing it and putting it together was making sure that we remind people that gay is a part of people. It is not the people, and there are 106 different flavors of everything, not just
Sure.
gay, and so it should not be presented as one way, one thing. And I think the book does a really great job of that. Moving on to the next story here, that was The Flash Enclosed Makeup Gift by Danny Lore. And this next one, this feature, I didn't know who Pied Piper was, but this might be my new favorite character. I really like this. This worked for me as a short. This was one of the ones I kind of wish had been longer. People are going to hear this phrase and think the wrong thing, so I'm going to say it and then kind of give it some context. I happen to be a kind of a social justice warrior, and not in the why can't everything be this race or this gender or this religion, not that kind of social justice warrior, but I'm all into don't hike the rent so that don't gentrify, don't hike rent so people are homeless. Let's not incur Brazilian level poverty. I'm a social worker by profession. That's what I do, and so this story, above all else, in terms of things that matter to me, spoke to me a great deal. You have a villain character who she's musical and playing the drums, and so that automatically I was like, oh, hey, where are we going with this? And doesn't look like your average supervillain either. You don't typically see, a character of that shape and size unless it's the Blob, and that is all it is. And so it was nice to see different body shapes in this, and not everybody looking like, ripped and superhero-ish. So that's fun and different. But, her whole thing here is I'm turning to villainy because I feel like there's nowhere else to go to fix a problem that is imminently fixable if only people would be decent. Google, don't be evil. That's a reference to our MODOK review, everybody. Plug. So anyway, and then, the solution is not villain focused. It's kind of Batman. I bought the bank that owned the Clark farm, but who cares? It's they come in and this hero fixes it doing non-superhero stuff. In terms of social workery short stories go, I liked it a lot. What did you think, Alexis?
Well, Pied Piper, you probably haven't heard that much about him because he was actually a Flash villain and has reformed in recent years to become a hero.
I think he might have been in one of the seasons of The Flash on CW, now that I think about it.
Possibly. So yeah, this is the character we haven't seen a lot of just because his change was fairly recent. Trying to look up a little bit more about the villain Drummer Boy, but I'm honestly not getting a lot of information about them.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the art style, and I love the idea that they team up at the end. I kind of like this idea that Pied Piper is, apparently very wealthy, and their way to get around it is to confront this homophobic landlord and say, okay, well then here, I'm going to buy the neighborhoods from you, and if you don't agree to this, well, the short version is you're going to suffer.
Yeah. Yep. And I mentioned at the top of the show, I love the title of this. It's my favorite title of the whole thing. Be gay, do crime. Perfect. Put her on the shirt, Mindy. Go ahead, Sean. Your thoughts on Be Gay, Do Crime?
It touches relatably on a very real issue, and that is the fact that our community not only wants, but we need our own spaces because we're so readily ostracized and made to feel unwelcome in others. We would love nothing more than to be able to just go anywhere and feel at home. Alas, that's not the case yet, and so that's often why you have gayborhoods. It is the physical manifestation of a true LGBT community. They're havens for those who have no place else to go and really feel safe, to feel a sense of family. And so really, if you're writing to an LGBT audience and you want to turn a villain, or two villains rather in this case, kind of on their heads, and just for the briefest of moments, make them not only identifiable, but if you want to really make a frustrated queer audience feel seen, make them two villains who are going full anti-hero and raging against a very real problem that gayborhoods do experience. And also just on a much subtler note, in terms of the new Pied Piper, you touched upon it yourself. Guys, thank you so much for not leaning overly hard into overt coding here, and just providing that subtle little reminder that queer does not have. I mean, it has its earmarks. It definitely does, but not everybody presents that way so outwardly. That there's so many of us who are indeed like way under the gaydar, and so it was refreshing to see that changed up a little bit.
So I want to talk about Nicole Maines for just a moment. Big name, big get for this book. She is an actress on the Supergirl show, as you said before. She plays Dreamer. She's a transgender rights activist, and please correct me if I'm wrong. And I'm not trying to be funny. I believe she's actually transgendered herself, and so it was a transgendered person playing a transgendered character was, I think, like the big headline with her. Am I correct about that, Alexis?
Yes, you are.
Okay, perfect. We can move on from that. So prior to her acting career, she was the anonymous plaintiff in the Maine Supreme Judicial Court case Doe versus Regional School Unit 26, where she argued her school district could not deny her access to the female bathroom for being transgender. Doesn't have a whole lot of credits to her name. She was on an episode of Royal Pains. She's been in a few documentaries. Her big get was when she landed on Supergirl in 2018. She was in a movie called Bit, and then she was in the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover. But she's won shit ton of awards for all the stuff that she does. So I think this is her first foray into comic book writing, and I thought she did a good job with this. First of all, I like the character in the show. There's a scene in her first season on the show where she goes on a road trip with Supergirl, and they bond in the car, and she actually comes out to her as being transgendered. It is a fantastic scene.
Yes.
Very, very well done. I think you and I touched on it, Alexis, when we surveyed the preceding 4 seasons leading into 5. And her relationship with the Brainiac character was really fun. She's an adorable woman. She's very attractive. She has great on-screen sex chemistry with the guy that plays Brainiac, and she's just a great addition to the cast. And they've used her they've used her well, and so I think it's sort of uncharted territory with the transgender hero character the way this is. But I think they've so far handled it pretty well, and I think they've succeeded in making a character that, even if you don't care about any of that I just said, and you just want to see fun hero books, she's a fun hero character. And this particular story, kind of like the Flash one, very similar vein. She's out there doing hero stuff. It's called Date Night, and she runs afoul of the League of Shadows, which I think is the League of Assassins and other iterations of this sort of thing. And she does a really funny thing. She defeats crime and she upends the evil, but she doesn't want to be late for their movie, so she knocks out the villain and brings him with her, like you do. And wrote Sleeping Beauty on his head, which I thought was hysterical. But yeah, I mean, I think if you turn the page and and just sort of forget about who it is and what it is and why it is, and you're just like, I want to read a punchy hero book, this is the most punchy story of the book outside of the Harley Quinn thing where she hits a plant with a hammer. So I liked it a lot. What'd you think, Alexis?
I absolutely love this full-page piece where you could tell that they're basically showing her moving in super speed, but the way they've done the lighting with the moon behind her is beautiful. This is a frame-worthy page, without question.
For sure.
Yeah, no, I do love Star. I love that Brainiac is so understanding. It's like you couldn't bring him to the tower first. I didn't want to miss the previews, and he just gives her a kiss. It's just like, oh, that's my silly girlfriend. It's just so cute.
Yeah. What I like about this, and I'll pitch it over to you, Sean, is Nicole Maines picked up right away that comic books are about people, not about powers.
Yeah. First off, Brainy is an absolute sweet bean. I love him. I love him so much. Send all the cuddles to Brainy, all of them, every one of the cuddles. But Dreamer, holy shit! What a well done story. What a fantastic intersection of superhero crime stopping with just trying to keep a fun, whimsical love life.
Yeah,
kind of on the rails, and seemingly doing so without so much as a hair out of place by the time she gets to the movie. Just great story. Well done to Nicole Maines, and please, DC, more Dreamer. More Dreamer. Want.
Yeah, there's another one where if Nicole Maines, and I want to say specifically Nicole Maines, it gets a limited series or a full run till they cancel it 6 issues later anyway, I would pick up the trade. I would absolutely pick up a Nicole Maines trade. I think she did a good job here.
100%. Yeah.
All right, so this next one is another pinup. Nick Robles draws Catman. I don't know what a Catman is, but he looks like he should be wrestling Brock Lesnar. It's fine. Just give me 10 words or less, Alexis. Catman, hanging from a tree branch, looking all Abby.
Kind of hard to wrap my brain around it, because my main experience with Catman was Dennis Farina voicing him on that one episode of Justice League Unlimited, and I look at this and I'm like, that is not a character voiced by Dennis Farina.
Was Catman the one in the tiger banana hammock?
No, he was in a full body suit with a cat mask.
Who am I thinking of then? Who ran around looking like Namor, but it was like spotted leopard print instead of the fish shorts?
I think you're thinking of Buona Beast.
Maybe. It's so hard to keep track. I know he was in a Justice League Unlimited bit for a little while. Anything else about Catman hanging out with a pride of lions?
I think I've said everything.
Sean, Catman, 10 words or less, go.
That's a beefy boy.
It is a beefy boy.
Big meaty men slapping meat.
Yes, yes, sir. The next one is another interpretation of the look of Harley and the look of Poison Ivy, though Poison Ivy looks a little bit more like any other version of Poison Ivy that I've ever seen. Harley looks a little bit different. And this one is by Sophie Campbell. It's a pretty picture. It looks perfectly lovely. I'd hang that on the wall if my wife would let me.
It is unusual to see Harley with her hair down like that.
It sure is. Sean, 10 words or less?
Harley and Ivy are cute with a capital K.
How long has Aqualad been gay? Has that been a lifetime thing, or is that another kind of Alan Scott only in recent years?
I'll Google it.
Okay. While you do that, I like this story. This is one I want to see blown up into a full-blown book. This was one of the ones I had on my mind, and I think it's one of the last ones, where I was like, gosh, I wish some of these had been longer, or they pull them out and give them a full book. Because I love the idea of a villain using the weather to bring out everyone's most awful emotions.
It's very Silver Age.
Yeah, and it working on the hero and the hero having to fight it. Also, the message of you're never alone. It's the fun thing about one of the few good things about the internet as it exists now is if you live in an isolated part of the world, you can still find a community out there. I mean, you live in Arizona. You were living in Arizona when I met you. Mm-hmm. You're Alexis. You're in Kansas. We have people in Utah, Ohio, Canada, and we're a community. We are a community of friends and podcasters with similar interests. And we wouldn't exist. This community wouldn't exist without the internet. And so, extrapolating that to what Love Life is talking about, the message being that if you're of the LGBTQ variety and you are in an isolated place where maybe you can't find others like you or whatever, you can find them online, and you are in fact not alone. And I think just that phrase, "you are not alone," is an important one to beat the drum over, because I think the most commonly held belief that causes all kinds of mental health issues is the feeling that you are alone and you are isolated and you are different in the negative way and all of that. So I thought Andrew Wheeler, who is the writer on this, did a really, really good job of hitting a bunch of different points, not the least of which was this was a fun comic book read, Sean.
And this brings the whole thing full circle. Because, everything you said is completely, absolutely true. It goes back to that theme that the Batwoman story that started this off kind of set out. That tragedy of suddenly having no one in the mirror that allows you to see yourself, to see no reflection around you, and to feel lost because of that, which is a nice overture. It's a very pointed and poignant overture, because that's so much of what's true and has been true in so much media for so long. Is there have been so many marginalized and underrepresented consumers who have never been able to look at the heroes that were presented and see themselves reflected and staring back. We see so many people nowadays who scoff at the notion of a minority of any kind taking up another hero's mantle, to see that passing of the torch, and people. Now, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to say it. Entitled, overly privileged, sheltered white men who take issue with the idea of just once not seeing themselves, because they're that accustomed to it. They're that used to being the status quo, to being the default, to being the main line. And as such, They can't deal with it. When all of a sudden they're asked to share the spotlight, it feels to them like it's being taken from them wholly and entirely and handed to somebody else who wants to take over, when really all some of us want is just to see ourselves reflected. Because especially when you think back to what we've had to be subjected to. And you know what? I'm even going to express a little humility here, because, of course, like I said, I've only really kind of figured myself out over the past couple of years. I feel like I would probably owe so many people I've encountered an apology for attitudes that were shaped not only by my upbringing, but by the pop culture in the 90s and 2000s that we were raised with, and that we never bothered questioning until really just a few years ago. I'm talking about the pilot of Friends, where Ross's wife leaving him is made just so much worse, and she's so much more despicable because she left him for a woman. You know, I'm talking about that scene in Ace Ventura that we all giggled at so hard, when really it was heteronormative disgust at having sexually encountered a trans woman, or having been attracted at any point to a trans woman. I could go on and on and on, because, again, as was pointed out at the beginning, the queer community has been a joke butt, caricature. Queer coding has so often subtly been this default aesthetic for so many villains throughout pop culture. We've been seen as predators for so long that it extends into real life. That has been what we've been seeing in the mirror. And now you look at it, and all of a sudden we have heroes like Kamala Khan, Harley Quinn, a bisexual abuse survivor. You know, you have Batwoman, a proud lesbian crime fighter on par with absolutely any of her peers, who's a vital linchpin of the Bat family. And we get to see normalized stories like running late for a date. Something that's just that simple and mundane, or Harley and Ivy having it out because one feels like the other maybe isn't taking their relationship as seriously as they could, and won't just go all in with the idea of commitment. You know, and that's where it comes back to this, is that through representation like this, stories like this, characters like this, there's this notion that future generations of the LGBT community might eventually in the future not have to feel as alone, not have to feel as unseen, not have to look around and not see reflections of themselves, positive reflections, relatable reflections. Characters that are truly them, something they can aspire to, rather than something that they're forced to be ashamed of or teased about, and have to laugh off if they just want to go along to get along, no matter how cruel the generalizations might be. That's the beauty of this story. Is the idea that through stories like this, characters like this, creators like these, members of this community, no matter how ostracized they might be, no matter how separate they might feel, no matter how disillusioned they might feel, as they're figuring themselves out and maybe having to undo years of programming that have made them fear acknowledging that they might not be straight or they might not be cis. There's now hope for a community, for people to come together in found and created families that maybe they didn't have among their birth relatives. So if you wanted to end what was a mostly perfect annual on a pitch perfect note, congratulations, DC. Job well done.
Hey, Sean, I know you got to go, so go ahead, throw your plugs out there, and then bugger off, and we'll get our last words in from myself and Alexis, and we'll close out. Okay? Go ahead and do your plugs.
Yes. Day job awaits. Follow me on Twitter at Comer Codex if you've enjoyed everything I've had to say. I apologize if that last one was a little bit long-winded, but this was an extremely personally important show for me on a lot of levels. I dare say it's probably the most important one that I've done in 9 years. And so, Mark, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be on it, giving me so much leeway to kind of run off at the mouth at the end there, because that was all just building up and just kind of wouldn't be contained anymore. I normally stream several times a week online at twitch.tv/ComerCodex. Go there, follow me, and on Twitter to get updates anytime I go live. But otherwise, thank you all. Never dull your colors for someone else's canvas, and I will see you all on the flip.
Okay. Alexis, I'm not sure if he buggers out of the call, if it's going to... Okay, no, I think we're still on the call. You're still there, right?
Yeah, I'm still here.
All right, your thoughts, madam, if you please.
I mostly just wanted to talk about some of the different characters that show up here at the end, and the idea. I was doing a little research while he was going on, and the idea that DC's kind of going back and forth on whether or not the JLQ is something that they really want to pursue as a more permanent comics staple. I do like the idea of seeing these characters get together. So we've got Midnighter and Apollo. We have Natasha Irons as the new Steel. That's the original Steel's niece. The dude in the front is the Tasmanian Devil. That's Gregorio's werewolf husband, apparently.
Who is the guy that looks like he's straight out of a Namor book with the butterfly shirt?
Oh, that is... Hang on a second. His name is apparently Syl. He's a student of Gregorio's, and he's a magician.
Oh, righty. All right, who else is in this splash page we're talking about?
Okay, so we've got Wink and the Eerie up top there. They're both non-binary.
I see Crush again. Who is Lobo's daughter? I just read that.
Yep, yeah, she's down there in the corner. We've got the Ray. He's the one who's glowing there. Again, very nice job on the lighting.
Which one is he? I don't see him.
The bright glowy one on the top right. The one who looked, yeah, yeah. Okay,
the one with the black face.
I didn't want to use that term because I was worried.
No, one can have a black face without having black face. It's two different things.
Yeah, the idea is that apparently his whole body is glowing. So
okay,
yeah.
but is the black and gold character in the far right?
Yeah, he's called the Ray.
Okay, I knew who the Ray, and that's why I got confused there, because I've seen the Ray in the CW cartoon, which looks nothing like that.
Exactly. Okay, so there was that. Tracy 13. There's a couple of characters in the background here. On the bottom left, we have, let's see here, Tremor. That's another character from Coral City. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Tracy 13 pops up again. Not really a lot I can see about her.
Who is the King Arthur looking dude with the knight's tunic and the crown type thing? He's in back of Crush.
let's see here. Well, I see a character with a sword and a knife, but not behind Crush. I see them behind Tasmanian Devil.
Okay.
And that is Shining Knight.
Okay. I talked about what I thought the theme and the message of this particular story was. Sean talked for a while about his thoughts and the themes and the meanings. Did you want to add to that at all? Did you have any other thoughts about this particular story?
I really am hoping that the JLQ is a storyline that they continue to develop. This looks like if nothing else, this looks like a really fun, just very enjoyable cast of characters. I want to know more about a lot of these. I think this would just be a very fun story arc to continue. So yes, DC, please make this more, just keep writing stories with these guys. I want to see more of these. I want to see Gregorio and his werewolf husband. I want to see them together. This looks like so much fun. I want to learn more about the new Steel. I want to see more about Ray. I want to see more about Tracy 13. I want to see more with Apollo and Midnighter. Again, they're a cute couple. This just looks like such a fun group of characters. And, and I'm just going to say it. I don't care that, they're LGBTQ. I just think they all look like really fun superheroes.
Yeah, here's what I'll tell you. I think the group comic works for the characters that probably can't support their own book. And I'll throw it out there. Outside of pairing up Crush with an already eminently popular character like Lobo, I don't, in Batwoman, who is perfectly capable of standing on her own, I don't know how many of these other ones could carry a book past 4 issues. And I don't know how many of them, even if they could carry it 4 issues, how, comparatively speaking, how they would sell with the better-known books out there. And this is already an industry that is shrinking by the day. So I tell you, just from a business perspective, I'm all for a JLQ book so that you can have a cast of LGBTQ characters without trying to shoehorn them into other books. But I think somebody who's, buying $4 and $5 comics a month, and maybe some comic book readers, is that all you think we spend, sir? I spend half my rent money. I don't know. But I think you go into a comic book store couple times a month, and you're pulling your titles that you're running with ongoingly. I think you can probably convince somebody to buy a JLQ book faster than you can get them to buy multiple solo series from any one of these characters. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, and for the record, I see the confusion. I was looking at the panel where they emerge from the portal. You're looking at the end where they're all doing the victorious pose. And that's why there was some confusion over where the characters were. I see I see the difference now.
Oh, okay. I know what you're looking at. Okay, I went up a few panels.
Okay, yeah, because I was just like behind Shining, or it's like behind Crush. And then I turned the page. I'm like, oh, she is behind Crush. We were just looking at the wrong pages.
Yes. All right. So your final thoughts on Sean kept calling it an annual. I was going with the word anthology. By the way, it does end with a bunch of profile of LGBTQ characters in the CW verse. You've got Batwoman, you've got Constantine, you've got White Canary, you've got Thunder from Black Lightning, and then you've got Negative Man from Doom Patrol. Have you watched Doom Patrol yet? I know I asked you this 12 hours ago, but that was 12 hours ago. Have you watched Doom Patrol yet?
Not yet.
Get on that shit.
Get on that shit when I don't have to keep watching shit for you.
I'm going away for 2 weeks. When I come back, I expect Doom Patrol to be watched in full and an essay written and a quiz. In any case, I think I've said enough about this, just to sort of reiterate, and then you can have the total final word on this thing. As an anthology, it probably could have used a bit more editing. Again, I would be happier with a little bit longer stories and a little less of them. But if they were trying to, like, hey, we have a survey of so many of these characters, and we really want to get them all in there, and we don't want this thing to be the size of a phone book, I guess I'm willing to overlook it. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and it's average. It was okay. I think I'm glad it exists. It's one of those things, I've said this about movies before. I'm glad the book exists for all the reasons we have been documenting for the past 90 minutes. I don't need to reiterate them.
Please don't. I have errands to run, man. Okay, I can only.
I got it. Yeah, I got a movie to go to. And Hamilton to finish watching. I'm glad the book exists. Could it have been better? Sure, but it's not bad either. But I'm glad it's out there for people of all shapes, sizes, and whatever to read. Now everyone's take on it's going to be different, but that's life. That's comics, I guess. But this was not an unpleasant experience. I'm glad we did this. I'm glad you suggested it.
Definitely. I love all the different art styles. I'm a fan of anthology comics, but I do understand. I know that they have their place, and I know that there's a lot of people who aren't crazy huge about them because they prefer longer stories they really can get sucked into. These are very brief stories for each one. And if that's not your thing, I get that. You know, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I greatly enjoyed it. I loved getting to see and know more of these characters. And again, I really want to see a JLQ story arc continue so I can learn more about these characters.
I'm all about the Nicole Main's Dreamer series. Especially if somebody gets in her ass and gets her to do something really like Doctor Strange-ish and like really play around with the dream powers and make it kind of psychedelic. Nicole Main's, I'm gonna hit you up on Twitter, babe.
Yes,
psychedelic Dreamer series. In the style of Doctor Strange. Fuck, man. I wanted you to say something, and I waited, and then you didn't, and then I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just keep going, and then you talked anyway. God damn it, I'm going to sit here and be quiet. Talk, damn it.
Sorry, it's kind of hard since I could barely get in a word in edgewise earlier. Now I'm just kind of trained, like, maybe I should just be quiet.
Psychedelic Nicole Main's Doctor Strange series. Go.
Yes, definitely. I would so watch the hell out of that.
Yeah.
I mean, they keep talking about how they need to build up the Arrowverse and how they need to bring in these new characters. It's like, just give Dreamer a spin-off, okay? Give her and Brainy a spin-off. We'll watch it.
Yeah, I was specifically thinking about a comic book, but yeah, I would also watch a Dreamer series. I don't know how well that plays with the modern television audience. I would have to look at numbers. It's hard to make a guess, and I don't want to come across as putting it down because I don't know. I mean, I'd be interested in it. I mean, I love the Legion show. This will be the last thing I say. I love the Legion show. Jesse and I reviewed all 3 seasons of that, and that was like way psychedelic, esoteric, out of the box. I don't know how well Legion did on effects. It lasted for 3 seasons, and it had a really good cast and crew working on it. But yeah, something in the style of Legion as a television show for Dreamer, if people are up for it, I'd watch that.
Definitely. But yeah, I do want to see more Dreamer. She's a really fun character.
All right. This is one of those days where 97 shows dropped on W2M, and this is number 98. Last night, we had a late recording that dropped early this morning for a comic strip for the Judas Contract. We compared the movie, we compared the book, and we even talked a little bit about the show. And we even talked a little bit about how much of this was drawn upon for Season 2 of Titans, the formerly DC Universe, now HBO Max live-action series. We also have a re-airing of our Dawn of the Planet of the Apes review. Tonight, myself and Pat, after I get back from Furious 7, will talk the first half of Dark Side of the Ring, which concluded with the Dynamite Kid. We talked about the Grizzly Smith family and the Ultimate Warrior, and it kicked off with Brian Pillman, and we did Collision in Korea, and Deathmatch wrestler extraordinaire Nick Gage. So we'll talk about all that tonight, and then the show is back in September, and we'll review it when it concludes. One of the episodes I might even be on, because I'm on a couple of episodes of XBW television, and if they use any of that footage, I'm a sue. We'll see what happens. In any case...
right in this bitch.
Yeah, right. No one contacted me about this shit. We kicked off the week with I worked Alexis to the bone. Next week she has the entire week off, except for our review of In the Heights. She has nearly the entire week off, and so now that I have exhausted this woman, she gets a couple of days to recuperate and actually spend time with her dogs and husband. I put that in the right order, right? Dogs and husband, as opposed to husbands and dogs?
I don't know. I'll ask Andre when he's got a moment.
We reviewed Lucifer Season 5B. We interviewed the director of Zombies 2, and Aquarium of the Dead. Alexis and I reviewed MODOK Head Games by Patton Oswalt. Then we reviewed the series by, once again, Patton Oswalt, which is on Hulu. My kids and I did an alternative commentary for Ready Player One, and I learned a valuable lesson. If I'm going to include my daughter in anything, don't go past 8 o'clock. She turns into a pumpkin. Alexis and I bet you're tired of hearing that phrase. We reviewed Loki, the God Who Fell to Earth, to coincide with the first episode of Loki that dropped on Disney+. We will review that series when it concludes. It concludes the end of July. We'll review it probably about the beginning to mid-August. And then myself and Simpsons enthusiast Robert Winfrey reviewed Dr. Colossus. I'm a stupid moron with an ugly face and a big butt, and my butt smells, and I like to kiss my own butt. Someone should clip that and use it as a ringtone.
I still may say that one day you will be marathoning Treehouse of Horror episodes. You're going to hear that phrase, and you are just going to lose it, and they're going to call the men in the white coats.
Tomorrow, there's a syndicated source material for What If Wolverine Was Lord of the Vampires. We've got a TV party re-air. Slowly but surely pulling from the archives and completing full series. So this one is Voltron Season 1. That's from back in the Blog Talk Radio days. We'll get that up for people to listen to complete the set of Voltron reviews that are currently on W2M. Monday, as for a special time, we've got a review of Green Jelly, Garbage Band Kids. You ever hear the Three Little Pigs from Green Jelly back in the day? Or is that too old for your young butt?
You just rambled there. I was like, what part of that was, comprehensive English?
Did you ever hear the Three Little Pigs song by Green Jelly?
No.
Moving on. I'll send it to you on Spotify. We have a re-airing of our Long Road to Ruin Back to the Future, which is me and Robert Winfrey, which caused Jesse to go into apoplexy, which leads us to our next plug. Myself and Jesse will have an on-trial where we will debate the merits of Back to the Future 2. On the previously mentioned show, I shit all over it, and Jesse wrote me nasty letters. So, 106 years later, we're going to go back to that debate and have it out live for you on a podcast. Meanwhile, myself, Harry Broadhurst, and Chris Bailey will review NXT TakeOver In Your House and Against All Odds, featuring Moose versus Kenny Omega. Alexis Hejna and I, and possibly my daughter, will review In the Heights. And a week from today, to coincide with the release of Luca on Disney+, we'll have a re-airing of our Inside Out show. Plus, there's always a live show, even when there's a re-air. Myself and Jason Teasley will do a Long Road to Ruin on an age-old franchise. I'm sure you've never seen this one either, but you should. It's fantastic. You should absolutely show it to your husband. Show him what real American culture is. The Porky's trilogy. Yes. That is one that I told my wife we were going to do Porky's on Long Road to Ruin, and I was doing it with Jason Teasley because who else would do this with me? And my wife was like, I would watch those movies with you. And that is why we're married 10-plus years, ladies and gentlemen. Marry a woman who loves the Porky's movies. Speaking of which, Alexis Hejna, your plugs.
All right. Well, first and foremost, we're getting ready to record our next episode of Tripped Up Trivia. We're going to be recording this weekend. The theme is female superheroes in honor of Black Widow coming out. You said the tickets actually for that movie went on sale today. You got yours?
Yep. I got mine twice. I'm taking my kids Friday, and then my wife's friend said that she couldn't go Friday, and so I bought tickets on Sunday. So I'm going twice.
Well, the mouse thanks you for your support.
Yes, ma'am.
We will be recording a follow-up episode of Trip to Trivia in July. This is going to be a monthly game. July's theme is Warner Brothers Animation. That's in honor of the next Space Jam movie coming out. I believe the second trailer for that just dropped. If you are interested in being a contestant for Trip to Trivia, go ahead and hit us up on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know. We're always looking for more players. Now on to the plugs that actually keep my lights on. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, where fashion meets fandom at the intersection of geek and chic. We are getting ready for, thank you, Lord, the dry spell is over. We're going back to work. Our first convention in over a year, KC Crypticon. So excited. Can't wait to be making an appearance there. We just got our booth number and everything. What was that noise?
I was cheering you on. Woo!
I'm sorry. It sounded like you pulled, a chihuahua out of your throat.
All things are possible through Christ. Keep going.
Sorry, of all the responses, that was not the one I was expecting. All right. Our stores are fully stocked on Handmade at Amazon and Etsy, and you can always hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, that's Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
Before we go, and I know Alexis has things to do, I have things to do, but I want to remind everybody that you can click the link in our description for a free 30 days of AmazonMusic.com. The link is getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network. That's getamazonmusic/W2M Network. Poppy actually just released a new EP, The Poppy, as we like to call her. If you're into her, she's got a whole bunch of albums on Amazon Prime that you can download, and if you're not, you can find other stuff to listen to. It's practically limitless, the catalog on AmazonMusic.com. So go ahead and check it out. Click the link, getamazonmusic.com/W2M Network. Fill out the information, agree to the 30 days, listen to as much music as you want, stream forever, and then if you like it, you keep it, keep paying for it once a month like you do any other streaming service. You don't like it, you cancel, no fuss, no muss. All right, that's it. That is our review of DC Pride. For Sean Comer, for Alexis Hejna, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.